FTX crypto, the second biggest donor to Democrats in this last cycle, this guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, there's just more and more stuff coming out. This is like a vortex of mismanagement, virtue signaling, financial destruction. Clay, they had meetings with this guy. The SEC chairman met with this guy to talk about how the SEC should regulate crypto. This is like the head of the SEC meeting with Madoff to talk about Ponzi schemes.
I can't read enough about this stuff, and I don't know what eventually the full story is going to be, but the Wall Street Journal had a piece this morning, Buck, that you and I were sharing before the show, where the guy who has now taken over in the midst of the bankruptcy said he's never seen a company this bad a shape in 40 years of doing this.
John J. Ray, the guy who has overseen some of the biggest bankruptcies ever. People usually think of Enron as among the biggest fraud bankruptcies. I think the biggest bankruptcy technically was Lehman Brothers, which obviously went bust and had a massive balance sheet. But John J. Ray said, Clay, to your point here, about FTX, this guy's been doing this for 40 years, quote, "Never in my career have I seen such a complete failure of corporate controls and such a complete absence of trustworthy financial information as occurred here, from compromised systems, integrity, and faulty regulatory oversight abroad," which means here in the U.S., "to the concentration of control in the hands of a very small group of inexperienced, unsophisticated, and potentially compromised individuals. This situation is unprecedented." End quote. Clay, the guy you bring in for the most catastrophic bankruptcies for the last 40 years is saying, this is the most messed up thing I've ever seen.
I don't see, what did Madoff get, 150 years in prison, something like that?
Something crazy like that, yeah.
I don't see, unless these guys make a run for it, I don't see how they aren't going to go away for the rest of their lives over these frauds and shenanigans. And we were talking about Theranos, the story about the fake, basically machine that could analyze your blood for illness for people out there. Bad Blood was the book, which was incredible. I know they've made a couple of miniseries and everything else about it. This actually looks like it's going to be even crazier than that. Well,
it's just on such a bigger scale.
Yes.
The thing about Theranos was that they were running blood machine testing technology and didn't actually have any technology, and it didn't work. And they at one point were considering, I remember from the book, sending people fake results on, things like an HIV test. I mean, think about the mentality there, right? Or I should say faulty results for things like that. They ended up, I think, holding back on some of that. But there was a conversation at Theranos about that. Holmes was the woman, right? Wasn't that her name?
Yes, Elizabeth Holmes.
Elizabeth Holmes, who would give these interviews where she would
deep voice.
Do this. She wore a Steve's Job turtleneck and did this weird fake deep voice. But because she had big bug eyes and had blonde hair, it was Clay. It was crazy, the people she swindled into this. And the way this guy yesterday, I mean, you know what, Clay, we actually have some audio. I think I played it on the post-show pod. We need to play it on this show where he's like,
yeah, we're just going to stop climate change and we're going to save the whole world from all the bad things.
Oh, his voice is unbelievable. I heard that because I was on the way to the airport yesterday when you were closing out the show.
I did play, yeah.
And you did play the audio and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
By the way, if you wonder how fraud like this can happen, do you know that SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, this guy who evidently perpetrated this massive crypto fraud, he's scheduled to be speaking at the New York Times Deal Book Summit next week. So if you're curious how a fraud like this could happen, it's so incestuous. The New York Times is not looking into any of the details here. They're literally bringing this guy to speak at a New York Times event. I think it's still scheduled on November 30th, which is crazy to think about. All these quote-unquote illuminating and super successful
Speak truth
figures.
to power.
Yes.
Unless he's going to write big checks for us and come to our conferences, then it's a different game.
That's what I'm saying. It's kind of crazy that he's going to speak. He was supposed to, when you look at this speaker list, Eric Adams is the first speaker, is the mayor of New York City, obviously. Next speaker, Sam Bankman-Fried. And then they've got like the CEO of TikTok, chairman and CEO of BlackRock, Amazon CEO, CEO of Netflix. These are, I mean, it's really kind of wild to think about how incestuous this is. If you wonder, how does a fraud get this big? It's because even the elite journalists out there are helping to carry the water of how brilliant this guy is.
I mean, this 30-year-old is described as a vegan polyamorous tech bro. Now, if you give your life savings to a 30-year-old vegan polyamorous tech bro, who is, of course, getting meetings with Joe Biden and the head of the SEC and the whole apparatus, this kid who kind of looks like if Frodo Baggins didn't get much sunlight and never worked out. Like, this guy was able to completely turn the apparatus to his will.
Yes.
I mean, he managed to just pull the wool over their eyes. Obviously, with billions of dollars of other people's money to throw around, it makes it a whole lot easier. But, Clay, when you see the people who are on, see, we're talking about this. I was going to talk about that. We'll come back and talk about the House and what all that means in a second here, the House of Representatives. That's obviously very important. But, Clay, you see the celebrities.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is like the Fire Festival of crypto brodom, right? I mean,
Yes.
This is a fraud of a scale that is going to have, look, we're down in Florida right now. A lot of crypto stuff has been going on, particularly in Miami, where you and I currently are. And when you see, I was looking for the celebrity list. There's already a class action lawsuit for $11 billion. Who are the people that were pushing this crypto? Tom Brady, Gisele Bündchen, Shaquille O'Neal, Steph Curry, Larry David, all named in the lawsuit that has been filed in the state of Florida. Newsflash, everybody. He does have an amazing jump shot. I do not think you should take financial advice from Steph Curry. Gisele Bündchen is like physical perfection. I do not think you should take crypto and investing advice from Gisele.
We need to pull the Larry David commercial, because he was in a Super Bowl commercial, which cost, FTX like $7 million or whatever the heck it was in the last Super Bowl. And the entire premise of Larry David's commercial is that he doesn't buy into the idea of crypto. But it's like, all the great historical conventions like, oh, you're telling me the wheel's going to be a big difference maker. I just don't see it. We need to grab that video, that commercial. But, Buck, all these guys are going to get massively sued. To your point, they don't know what they're doing. Their advisors were just like, hey, you should pitch crypto like it's Pepsi or like it's, the Wendy's, which is typical the kind of advertisements these guys do. They had no idea. What about Matt Damon? All these guys were doing
tons
crypto
of them.
commercials.
And just so everyone's clear, you have like Elizabeth Warren, who's always, we're gonna hold the banks accountable, and the rich and the fat cats, we're gonna just squeeze those fat cats until they're skinny. Elizabeth Warren does all this stuff about, holding power and finance accountable. Clay, people were investing billions of dollars into something where securities, which are an investment with that the SEC is supposed to regulate, you're investing in if it's a publicly traded company, it is a company. It has a balance sheet. It has earnings and losses, and there's something. A crypto is a bunch of numbers on the screen. You have the chance of literally losing 100% of everything you invest, and there's no underlying assets. There's no factory to sell off. There's nothing.
Yeah.
And basically, there was no regulation. I guarantee you, Elizabeth Warren in 6 months, it's just the Republicans plotting here.
And what we need to continue to bring home for everybody out there is this dude was the second biggest donor to Democrats, almost $40 million. And in that audio you played, Buck, he was talking about giving them hundreds of millions of dollars in the years ahead.
$500 million next year. And they said he was going to be the world's first trillionaire.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, and the whole thing was a fraud. So just the other thing, too, all the people, you see these people and you think, they're really rich or they're really famous and they must be so smart. A lot of really rich, famous people are dumb as can be, super narcissistic, and make all kinds of horrific errors. They just got really lucky once, or they were just born really lucky. In the case of models and athletes, there's God-given talent.
There's no doubt about it. And I think it goes to, there's a lot of fraud at the inception. right? When you go look at this entire Sam Bankman-Fried ridiculousness, Firefest is, I think, a good analogy. I think certainly Bernie Madoff is a good analogy. It's kind of a mixture of both of those. They wanted it to be true. And I wonder how much of this crypto universe in general is totally built in a house of cards. And my big concern here is at some point, are we going to see almost 2008 style, Buck? Some of these crypto exchanges have gotten so big that their failure transfers over into the larger economic marketplace.
Now you start saying, people might be wondering, well, I don't own crypto. Okay, well, do you have a pension plan? Do you have a 401k?
A lot of people had money with the crypto that had no idea they were doing it.
There's contagion. There's contagion for what happens here, and especially if people think they can get outsized returns and everyone's getting in, and there's pressure on these money managers to hit their numbers. And
that's right.
Ooh, things can get very ugly fast. But it really does all come down to Clay. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Once again, the most simple truths are the ones that people forget in these kinds of situations. And people pay the price. the videos he has, little videos on TikTok with Tom Brady. Also, it's like Tom Brady was hanging out with it. The guy's a little weirdo. I mean, you look at this guy. He's living with 10 other 30-year-olds all in the same apartment in the Bahamas, and they're apparently just like playing Dungeons and Dragons and doing other stuff I can't describe on the radio. And they're giving them billions of dollars.
Well,
I mean, this guy was getting sit-downs with Biden.
I know. I mean, well, that used to mean something until Biden started interviewing people who became women 3 weeks ago. But we're talking about crazy right now on this cryptocurrency. The Democrats' second biggest donor behind George Soros, nearly $40 million that this guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, had committed. And now it's spiraled into an area where class action lawsuits actually been filed, Buck, by David Boies. So against all these super celebrities for advocating for FTX, there's going to be a lot of people
Do you know
involved.
who David Boies represented, by the way?
Do I know who else he did?
Yes.
Oh, I mean,
Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos.
Oh, did he?
Yes, he did.
He is one of the great, regardless of what you think of his politics, David Boies is one of the great litigators of the last 40 years, honestly, in terms of if you wanted to be repped by somebody or if you wanted to be sued by somebody. He's not at the top of the list of which you would like to have that. So,
I'm sorry. David Boies was on the board of Theranos.
Theranos. Okay. Well, there's an irony there. But, Buck, what we say about lawyers is
we say a lot of things about lawyers, Clay, just not when you're around.
The commitment to principle of lawyers is not necessarily very consistent. If there's money to be made or somebody will take the other side and there's an advantage, that's really funny. So he was on the board at Theranos, and now he's suing on what may be a much bigger version.
The guy understands giant frauds pretty well.
He should be an expert on it for sure. So he has filed a lawsuit. Among the people that he is suing is Larry David. And this is pretty funny. This was a commercial that aired during the Super Bowl of Larry David saying, hey, do we need to save it? Maybe we need to save it.
Yeah, let's save it. We'll hit it when we come right back. We'll play the Larry David Super Bowl commercial just as a little reminder, and then we'll dive into the house.
Larry David, this is a clip from the Super Bowl. We talked about it earlier.
Are you a Curb watcher? Do you watch
love
Curb?
Curb. I think it's one of the funniest shows that's ever existed. And I love Seinfeld back in the day. Larry David's an incredibly talented comedian, even if we have different political leanings. But listen to this.
I call it the wheel.
I don't think so. What does it do?
It rolls.
Yeah, so does a bagel, okay? A bagel you can eat.
One of the worst ideas I've ever heard.
Brother David, behold, the fork.
I got 10 forks right here, baby! Am I right?
My lord?
What is it?
A toilet, my lord.
A toilet? You expect this court to do its business inside? We're not animals. We go outside like humans.
It's coffee. It's new.
Oh, it's awful.
You don't like it?
I'm all jittery and feel like I got a big job coming on.
Hancock, you sign first.
No king, Gentlemen, have you taken leave of your senses? The people shall have the right to vote. Even the stupid ones? Yes. Stupid people vote? Yes.
Edison, can I be honest with you? It stinks. Does your wife know what's going on here?
She knows I go to work.
You're wasting your time, and it's sad. You might as well put the dishes in the shower.
Hey, Captain, what's cooking? We're putting a man on the moon. Are you out of your mind? I can't even get tuna without celery. Nobody's gone to the moon, ever. Why not? It's too far. It's far. It's really far. It's far.
我々の未来はポータブルミュージックです。
バカかバカかわかるだろうわかるだろうわかるだろう出て行け未来言うのか怖いんだだからまた2回言うてもええのさまた言うのも簡単に
Like I was saying, it's FTX. It's a safe and easy way to get into crypto.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I'm never wrong about this stuff. Never.
Franklin! Hey, I left my cane in there. What? What do you mean? Hey, that's an expensive cane!
And now they were trying to be funny, but he
Yes.
wasn't wrong because that wasn't a good idea. But Clay, I didn't even realize this. I hadn't thought of this in a long time. Do people still put celery in their tuna? What is wrong with humanity?
It's madness.
Celery and
Madness.
tuna is crazy. It's like people who put walnuts in their brownies. We are not barbarians. It just ruins the brownie.
For those of you out there, the clip is funny to watch. He was saying that the wheel wasn't going to work, that American democracy was not going to work, the Constitution, and that there was no way we were going to send a man to the moon. They were trying to say, oh, he's been wrong about everything. He actually ended up right about crypto. He's like,
Right
I
about
don't see
I
it.
know. The great irony at the end there.